And when you start fiddling with kids, I'm done. I'm done.
It's just all of this like hyperbolic, infantilized glitter speak in place of actual morals. It's like they're trying to imply with the tone of voice that they have morality, but the words that they're saying are just so like fluffy and base level. They don't actually have any depth. We're going a mile wide and an inch deep. It doesn't, nah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
I'm not touching religion, but I'm communicating with you right now. Do you feel it? Okay, good.
Or gender nonsense in a very specific young group of kids.
Gender nonsense. There's strong words coming from a woman looking this butch.
Just to feed its rabid base.
Just to feed its rabid base. Stop looking at me like that. Oh my God. If you're reinforcing the gender binary, if you're saying that girls can only wear pink and not blue and boys can't paint their nails and girls have to be like the homemakers and play these traditional feminine roles that uphold capitalism and the patriarchy and colonialism in ways that is hurting these two individuals as well. I don't see how they don't have the self-awareness to realize that they're perpetuating a system that also strips them of equality at the same time, but that's neither here nor there. Oh my God, what is that freeze frame? Jesus, that scared the hell out. What is that, her thumb?
This is what's interesting about this LGBTQ conundrum, if I see it.
The LGBTQ conundrum, that is the name of my new cover band. That is hilarious. I love that. Come on, LGBTQ conundrum. Hello babies and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, hi, my name is David, and on this series called Dismantling Hate, we are looking at some internet hate, some internet nonsense, and some far-right extremism, sometimes some transphobic, some homophobic, some xenophobic, all kinds of things where people engage in discriminatory things that happen online. I am not going to be blurring the names or faces of any of these individuals because they do in fact present themselves as public figures. This does not mean that I think you should be going to their profiles and leaving hateful comments and messages because I do not want us to be participating in the culture of hate, even though they may deserve it. Now, I have stumbled across the literal goldmine, but in the worst way, because I have discovered the YouTube channel called Gays Against Groomers. Now, I came across it because I found it on Instagram first, and then I followed it through, and there's a podcast that we're going to get into. There are so many different YouTube videos, and now, like, because when I started creating this, I was like, do you think there's enough hateful content to go around for me to actually make a series of videos that are very bingeable? That is to say that this is the 4th episode in my series, so if you're interested, if you like this, go ahead and watch those other ones. They'll be all linked in the playlist there, and it should be nice and bingeable for you. But today, we're going to look at this video called Gays Against Groomers. Founder discusses new coalition to stop the sexualization of children. And without further ado, we're going to dive right in. I have listened to about only the first 8 seconds of this, and I forget what it was, but I know that I scream laughed at the first few seconds. So let's get into it. Let's see what this founder has to say.
And when you start fiddling with kids, I'm done. I'm done. And so when we stumbled upon Gays Against Groomers, we played video about this group's pushback against this radical sexualized nature of dealing with children in schools, etc. From story time with, whatever. Come on.
I think maybe whatever is referring to drag queens in this context, but I can't be sure.
Fine. But then we reached out to Jamie Michelle. And she is the founder of Gays Against Groomers, and she was so kind and said, I'd be delighted to come on your program. So Jamie, welcome, my dear.
Oh, I didn't know.
Hi, Lindy. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. I want you to take us to the beginning. What's going on with this group? How did you do it? I love it. Go.
Well,
why does everybody in these videos, like, okay, not everybody, but I did another video, I think it was episode 2 of this man, and or it was episode 3, I think, of this man that also had the American flag behind him. Like, isn't that interesting? I've chosen my background a little bit more here specifically, but the American flag background just kills me. It's like patriotic.
I actually had an online presence for about 6 years. Back during the 2016 election cycle, I I actually supported Trump, and I started an account called.
Okay, and then when we hear things like this, it does make me feel better. It does make me feel better because okay, this whole series is not to make me feel better, but it should make us feel better as collective queer people, because if you are a Trump supporter, it kind of fits the same narrative that you would be the founder of Gays Against Grooming. It just, another piece of the puzzle gracefully falls into place.
Gay Who Strayed on Instagram, and that over time has blown up to like 250,000 followers. Wow. So now I've been doing the same thing for a while, just spreading news and stuff on that account. And finally, with all of this happening, I was like, I have such a big platform, I can't just not do something about this crisis. They're
really filling our buckets for things that we're going to go out in future episodes here. It's great
that we're facing now, with largely done in our name, under the umbrella of pride, because I, along with millions of others, just completely oppose it, and we're disgusted by it. And
not millions, definitely not millions.
We need to stop it from happening, to protect the children, but also to reclaim our name. Because right now, anything you see coming out of the LGBTQ plus community is targeting kids. And
okay, right away, the problem, it's just, right, it's a logical fallacy, right? Just saying that anything that's coming out of the LGBTQIA plus community, it's not that hard to say. It's just, you can't make those big, broad, sweeping generalizations of like who... It just isn't logical, because first of all, almost nothing is targeting children. They almost have this way of looking at anything queer or anything that maybe they don't personally identify with and see it as something that is targeting children. So even the things that are not targeting children, they see it as such. And I forget what fallacy that is, but only seeing things that fit your narrative and ignoring everything else. False attribution? I don't know what that is, but it's a problem.
You don't want to be associated with it at all.
But what is it, though? I think the problem that I have with people that talk like this is like, what are the facts? Like, facts are facts, America. Like, show me, actually sit me down and talk to me about these actual things that are happening, and like your measured response, other than like, get the gays out of the classroom, or like, it's just all of this like hyperbolic, infantilized glitter speak in place of actual morals. It's like they're trying to imply with the tone of voice that they have morality, but the words that they're saying are just so like fluffy and base level. They don't actually have any depth. We're going a mile wide and an inch deep. It doesn't,
Make it very clear that we oppose it. We're just as disgusted by it as parents and concerned people everywhere. So the idea popped in my head, Gays Against Groomers. I was like, wow, that has a nice ring to it. I just created the social pages, and
I do love an alliteration, but not when it's discriminatory, so I still hate it.
I knew there was a place for it, but it has absolutely skyrocketed. Like, I started it June 6th, and we're already at like 90,000 followers between Instagram and Twitter, all organic, just spreading naturally. So
that's amazing. Well, what sorts of comments are you getting?
I mean, we can go through and look at the comments. It's pretty balanced, to be completely effing honest. About half of the people are agreeing and half of the people are not. 90,000 followers, like it's a lot. It's about 89 more thousand followers than I have anywhere. But I'm just some girl with a microphone here who's starting out and doing all this other stuff, right? It's not.
So we have a lot of gay people that are like, finally, I can like be happy to call myself part of the community again. This is exactly what I've been looking for.
But what community? What community?
But I was alone. Like, they know they're not alone, but there's just no community. There's individual people commenting against what's happening, but there was no united front, basically, in an organized way to band together and push back against it. And then from the beginning...
Oh my God, I just noticed that her tank top also has an American flag in the shape of a heart. Tell me you don't have a personality without telling me you don't have a personality, you know what I mean?
Allies, welcome. Please join us.
Ally, talk, Valentina.
But we're all together. Like, you don't have to be gay to follow the movement. But I have gotten probably more messages and comments from straight people that are just like, I have never had a problem with the right to marry, with same-sex marriage, or you guys just living your life. Like, a lot of people are like, I have so many family members and friends that are gay, and they're so against this, and thank you so much for standing up for this. And I did so also because, the problem is straight people really don't have a voice in this, because they're instantly written off as hateful and bigots and all of the phobics in the world.
That's really interesting to say. I don't know if straight people really have that much of a voice on queer things. In the same, like, Well, I was going to make the comparison of like, I don't know if I could logistically speak about like the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't think, maybe in a way of like criticism, I don't think I would be able to logistically, and it opens a conversation of like be able to and like cancel culture and that. And not that I have like thoughts that are opposing to Black Lives Matter, but I think if I did, I don't think that would be received well because I am a white person. I'm very white. Don't let the self-tanner fool you. I'm very white. And I think that's there for a reason, is because I have an amount of privilege that precludes me from commenting on communities that I am not a part of in a negative way. I can leverage my voice to support those movements that I believe in. But as far as criticism goes, I really don't know if straight people have the place to criticize the queer movement. But I think the problem here is that straight people, and it's not like I don't want to create this like us versus them, but I think sometimes we get caught up in pigeonholing people into a whole community, right? Like if somebody has a problem with me, you can't really think then that you have a problem with the queer community, or the queer community is the reason that you have a problem with me. It's just, again, it's a logical fallacy to assign a whole community to the monolith of one person. It doesn't really make sense. So if there are inappropriate things going on, like this says with the sexualization of children, yes, the sexualization of children is something that I would be against as well, but it's not connected to the queer community inherently. If there are people that they are alleging who are participating in the sexualization of children and they just happen to be queer, that's not a comment on the whole queer community. In the same way that if somebody from the straight community was participating in the sexualization of children, that's not a comment on the straight community. And if they were a Black person, that wouldn't be a comment on the Black community. It would only be a comment about that one specific person. We can't keep taking people from these communities and having them represent an entire group of people. That inherently is what discrimination is. How do we not see that?
And obviously that's not true, but they're just their voices are not taken seriously, and they're going to have a much harder time calling us those things. So it's going to take those of us within the actual community to finally, put an end to it. And that's what
put an end to what though? Start actually saying actionable things. It's just, yeah.
I do.
So what was the final straw for you? I mean, there was that moment where you're like, oh, hell no. No more. This is stupid.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's a plethora of things. It's not only the sexualization of children with the drag queen story hours and drag shows with kids. It's kids being at Pride. Because Pride events have just evolved into like so sexual, so overtly sexual, and
Okay, so sometimes I think people do confuse the two things, because there are events that take place like the Folsom Fair in San Francisco, and those are like outdoor fetish sex events. That's just basically what those are. And there are many things that take place like that, where there is nudity in the streets and nudity in public, and the streets are shut down, and it's an event, and it's something that's been happening for decades. It's not new, but that's not Pride. That's not Pride. Like a Pride event, I have been to so many countless Pride events literally all over the world, and none of them are that inherently sexual. It's not a thing. And I because people like this publish pictures, I forget what episode that was in already. This is only number 4, but I forget what episode it was in, where they had a picture of a child standing next to 3 men with like the pup masks on. And I think they take those outlier images like that and plaster them over social media to make people who aren't educated and to make people who aren't a part of those communities think that's the average queer experience, when it's not. Right? I am fully a believer that drag is for everyone. I think kids should be able to attend age-appropriate drag shows, because to be honest, a lot of shows that take place in 18-plus venues, like bars, are not appropriate for children, and that's fine, and kids shouldn't be there, and that's why your ID gets scanned when you enter the premises. But I do think that drag shows should be accessible to everyone in age-appropriate ways. Drag queen story time is just like for the development of children, just period. Like studies have shown for like even just puppetry, right? The bright colors, the different voices, the movement, the interaction, even just the basic linguistic back and forth of a conversation is so important to child development. So why wouldn't you want to diversify all the ways that a child can take in bright, colorful, interesting theatrical things? Can't you see that somebody's performance at a drag queen story hour in a library at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning would be different from the number that they're doing for a bunch of drunk people in a nightclub on a Friday night? People can be more than one thing.
A lot of kink stuff there, as family friendly. And then
No, they are not. No, they are not. No, they're not. No, they're not.
as well as that, it's the indoctrination of this like radical gender theory in schools.
It's not radical gender theory. It's just, hey, what are your pronouns? It's really not that deep, but it's fascinating to me that it's seen as radical. We're only 5 minutes in, good God. But it is really interesting though, because sometimes I think that people think that a diverse gender expression is so radical, and I think it's because they are so far in this colonization mindset, because a diverse gender expression does threaten capitalism and making money and just the continued ecological entitlement that is mostly, well, I was going to say North America, but it's more than North America. So these people, I believe, I am of the opinion that these people are fighting to uphold a structure that does not give a rip about them, which honestly, it's quite sad. It's quite sad that they don't see this. And while I do have empathy for them to a point, my empathy is also guided by my discernment. And I am listening to a conversation of people who label themselves as gays against groomers. So my empathy kind of shrinks.
This trans push in schools. So
it's not a trans push. It's a basic acceptance of human rights.
This all has been culminating to the tipping point where it's like, wow, this is just getting so much worse and worse and worse. And
she doesn't have any story. She has like all of these broad generalizations of things that she thinks are reality, but in fact are not. Can't we have like an actual story? She said, what was the final straw? That's a good pause face. She said, what was the final straw? She doesn't have an actual story. Like what actually pushed you there? Maybe it's coming.
Videos every day coming out of another drag queen story hour or another person, a drag queen that performs for children just got busted for like 26 charges of like child porn. So it's like
no. Who? What are the names? If they have been busted, as you say, for pornography like that, that would be a public record. Show me the names, because I don't believe there's any. I really don't believe there's any. And if it is true, like how many? Again, I don't necessarily want to touch Catholicism, but how many priests have been busted of that as well? Like you can't take one example and then you can't take one example of a person from a community and then paint the rest of the community with that same brush. It's just not appropriate. It's discrimination. We've said that.
It's just been nonstop. So, I mean, I'd obviously been against this for a long time, as we all are and have been, but yeah, I just couldn't sit by with my platform and not try to do something about it.
And if you're just tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with Jamie
and nobody else. So
Michelle from Gays Against Groomers, and I hate to label you that way because you're obviously so much more than that. But this is
she can see how Jamie here is so much more than this one thing, but nobody else is given that same privilege.
This is what's interesting about this LGBTQ conundrum, if I see it.
The LGBTQ conundrum. That is the name of my new cover band. That is hilarious. I love that. Come on, LGBTQ conundrum. Honestly, I'm always saying that.
It was hard enough for decades for people to come out and be who they are. Two of my closest friends are two married women who have a darling family.
It's so fascinating that she allegedly has two best friends who are queer. They are so close. They are so close to actually being self-aware, but something's not connecting.
Freaking people, and they cannot tolerate what's going on, but they can't come out, Jamie, as conservatives because the other LGBTQ community comes out at them, and then all of a sudden they're exercised. It's like, wait a minute, you didn't want to be discriminated against, but now you're so quick to discriminate in your own group. That's the conundrum in my mind. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. Me and some other friends that happen to be on the right side of politics, we've said for years that now it's easier to come out as gay than it is to come out as, a gay conservative. Like we always say, like,
because a gay conservative is an oxymoron for the most part. I mean, what does conservative even mean, too, right? Like, yeah.
We come out twice now, and that's completely true. And people are scared because they're going to lose friends. They might lose some family members.
Yeah, you should lose friends and family members if you come out as discriminatory. Like, what? Or not maybe should, but it makes sense that you would. Right? Like if I went out and just started explaining to people how I was racist, as an example, I'm not racist, but if I started sharing all these racist ideas with my friends and family, would it not make sense that I would hope that most of them would, well, maybe try and take me aside first and be like, David, what the hell's going on here? But like, people can leave. People can leave if you have shitty ideologies.
Lose their job. I mean, the left is absolutely ruthless. You know, if you step out of line, and if you disagree with them on anything. So, I initially made my first account the Gay Who Strayed to show that there are more of us on the right than just straight white men. You know, it's like a huge, people from all walks of life, races, faiths, whatever, sexual orientations. It's more than just that.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm not touching religion, but I'm communicating with you right now. Do you feel it? Okay, good.
Well, we've been facing that for a long time, and now, now we're facing it again, trying to just protect children. I mean, we've received a lot of hate from leftists on Twitter, trying to mass report our account and harass us.
I'm not on Twitter, but I'm here.
It's like, why are you doing this? Like, we literally just want to protect kids. They're calling us hateful.
Amen.
And it's like, is this really the hill you want to die on?
Right, Jamie,
Like,
you sound like me. It's the same thing. I've been kicked off. I've been fired. I've lost friends. I've lost family.
So all of these things have happened to you, but you're not looking inward at it? Like, if you're facing all these difficulties in your life, what, like, who's the common denominator between all those problems, bestie? It's you. It's you.
Radical, but because I fundamentally am conservative, and for some reason that's like the new scarlet letter. Do you find that conservatives are discriminatory against the LGBTQ community, or do you feel welcomed and supported? And what's the reality?
Well, the reality is that she can't actually answer that question because she's part of the conservative community. It would be like me answering, are people in the queer community accepting of you? I'm like, well, I'm a queer person, so of course they are. Like, the call's coming from inside the house.
Gay in society, in terms of being gay and leaning to the right.
Gay and leaning to the right? There's a joke there, but I'm going to leave it.
No, actually the exact opposite. It has been nothing but open arms from conservatives. I mean, just to show you, like, I have 250,000 followers on my main political account. So, and that's all.
We'll go check that out in another video.
On the right. So, no, they openly embrace you. They've openly embraced me and many friends I have that are also influencers on the right. They don't care about that. We just care about freedom, and living our lives without the government trying to get in our way every 2 seconds. And, now it's like, they just have a problem when it comes to kids. And that's what we have a problem with, too. That's not an anti-LGBTQ plus stance. That's an anti-grooming stance. That's an anti-child abuse stance. And that shouldn't be.
You do realize that heteronormative people, heterosexual people, are just statistically grooming and sexualizing children as well? Like, if it is allegedly happening in the queer community, you can't tell me it doesn't also happen in the heteronormative community as well. So then why are we focusing in this on gays against groomers? Because it's interesting, right? Like, gays against groomers, the words itself actually isn't homophobic. Like, it could be gays against groomers, but it's kind of, they're not actually talking about the heterosexual groomers. They're only focused on the queer groomers that they allege are everywhere. Huh.
And it's not radical. What they're doing is radical.
Right. When did things get so extreme? Because what is a huge disservice in my mind to the LGBTQ community is the publicizing of these highly sexualized parades where men are naked, or where things are right. And it
goes back to the naked man on the tricycle from episode 1. Shout out to him.
Does a great disservice to just people who want to love who they want to love, who want to get the same benefits and be treated the same damn way.
Like, I get it, but why can't we be just upset with the naked man on the bicycle? Why does it have to be the queer community as a whole? You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be. And also, I want to make a note here, and it's just because, like, as somebody who has moved around the world in my 27 years of experience, the body language and the tone of this woman talking on the screen right now feels unsafe. feels unsafe. There's something in here in my psyche, and it's not because I just ate dinner and I'm cold, but it's just there's something about her that makes me feel like she would be an unsafe person to be around. And I like her words definitely reinforce that as well. But it's I don't know if you feel that too. Let me know in the comments if you glean that from her body language. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Everybody who's straight and just be left alone. When did things get so wild?
Yeah, it's the yeah, did that make sense to you, the noises I just made?
Exactly. You know, and I said, like, our mission is kind of twofold. Obviously, it's to protect kids and stuff that's being done by people within our community. So many of us don't even want to be associated with the community because of, and that's been going on for quite a while.
You don't want to be associated with a community that worked so hard to give you the rights that you're enjoying right now, so much so that you're able to be a part of this conservative community that you believe you are a part of. But by throwing these people to the conservative machine that you think you are not a part of, they are slowly taking away the rights of the ones that you think should have their rights stripped from them. But they are coming for your rights too, Miss Jamie Mitchell. You're not safe either.
Since it became less about, just who you love and more about sexual fetishes and stuff like that. But,
So you're saying that straight people don't have fetishes? That's just wrong. It's just not true. It's just not true. That kind of stuff shouldn't exist in the presence of children, of course. We can agree on that, but straight people have fetishes also.
Our second part of our second mission is to distance ourselves from this because it's setting us back miles. Like, gay marriage was legalized really not that long ago. And in that, it took decades and decades of fighting to just get equal rights. All we wanted were equal rights under the law. And millions of us were fine stopping our fight there. Like, thank you. We achieved it. We just wanted to integrate into society and be seen as, like...
Yeah, but that's not something that's been achieved. The fact that I get called the F slur when I'm walking down the street with a face of makeup on, like, we did not achieve that. We may have equal rights on paper, but like day to day, it's not. It has not been achieved yet, and it's fascinating that Jamie thinks it has been.
But the radicals, as they always do, they just kept pushing, and it's less about just equality now and more about supremacy, right? Like, they want to be treated with special privileges, and not only that. They want to restructure all of society to bend to this fringe minority. I mean, trans people, and I want to be clear, we're not anti-trans. We're just we have many trans allies. What we are against is pushing the ideology on children. But
so if you have trans allies, do you think these trans allies just like floated down in a basket from the sky at age 24 and they were never children? Like, trans adults were trans children. So how? Like, if we're not building a society, if we're not building a structure of a way of educating individuals so that trans kids can feel comfortable to come out, or like, I'm fighting for a world where people don't have to come out. Like, why does it have to be a thing? Why can't you just be you? Right? Like, the gender abolitionist idea of like, why do we need to have such strong assigned gender to begin with? It doesn't need to be. Yeah, but unfortunately, the way that these people participate in gender so strictly forces trans people to come out and say, hi, I would like to participate in the gender that you don't perceive me as. So I have to go through all of these things in order to feel validated. But there is a possibility of a world where people can just feel validated by being who they are, and it doesn't need to be some big to-do. But these people perpetuating this kind of nonsense makes it a big to-do.
Yeah, it just seems like in the past few years it has really ramped up against kids. And people, there were radicals on the right, people on the right that warned about the slippery slope. And back then, I was like, you guys are nuts. Like, there is no gay agenda. There is going to be no slope. We just want to get married. And I will never forgive the activists in the community for proving them to basically be right about the slippery slope. And now we're at the damn near bottom of it.
Right.
And we're going to reverse it because it's bad for the kids. It's bad for us. Homophobia, I don't even like to say it, homophobia. It's just basically acceptance of the whole community is declining rapidly right now. And it's not rocket science as to why.
Don't you see how you're a part of the declining acceptance of the queer community?
After children.
Right
That's
on.
literally it. And not,
How though? How? Show me the studies. Where are the examples? You can't just keep saying these things and not actually having things to back it up. Also, does this woman just forget that she's on camera? The way that she's behaving is so erratic.
anything you see alphabet related, that's all you see now.
Yes.
So people are associating us with going after kids, and that like
You're the one who's doing that. You are the what? She's the one who's perpetuating that gays are groomers because it.
vast majority of us are completely against it. So we're going to get really loud, and we're going to be a force that they can't ignore.
I love this.
And-
Do you have 5 more? Do you have 5 more minutes? I just have to hit a quick commercial break, but I have a few
I
more
do.
questions. You do?
Yep, no problem.
Jamie, thank you so very much. One more time, Jamie Michelle from Gays Against Groomers. Great idea. Common sense. I mean, this is not complicated, as she said. Welcome back, everybody. Delighted to reintroduce to you Jamie Michelle, who is the mastermind behind Gays Against Groomers. And Jamie, I want to ask you this: don't say gay bill. It just makes me so angry when facts are not read. There is a very simple piece of legislation to prevent the sexual or gender nonsense in a very specific young group of kids.
Gender nonsense. There's strong words coming from a woman looking this butch.
Florida. It was so extreme and so bad there, they had to pass a law, which was then conflated by noxious people to say it's the Don't Say Gay bill. Does that infuriate you that the left will stop at nothing to conflate facts just to feed its rabid base?
Just to feed its rabid base. Stop looking at me like that. Oh my God.
Yes. The quote unquote don't say gay bill, which is funny because gay was never even, the word gay was not in the bill at all. But that's what the left does, right? They manipulate language. It's kind of like Black Lives Matter. Like, you can't come out against Black Lives Matter because what? That means you literally don't think Black people's lives matter. They always get you caught up in the language. They're very good at that. But yeah, it's disgusting. Honestly, it's
Again, kind of like the Trump supporter, but being anti-BLM really fits the narrative of this individual. It does. Makes sense.
and many others in our coalition that the quote-unquote don't say gay bill didn't even go far enough, right? It only went up to third
That's
grade.
what I was
Fourth
saying.
graders-
I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Go up
fourth
to
graders-
6th.
Yeah, fourth graders are 9-year-olds.
I know,
So,
right?
no, I don't think that any kid, regardless of straight sex, like gay sex, any kind of sex, they shouldn't be learning about this stuff until they're well into their teen years. I mean like 16, 17, 18 maybe, you know?
Well, 16, 17, and 18 are still the age of which most children are in school. We'll lead with that. But also, I think a lot of people conflate the idea of gender identity and sexual orientation, which are two very different and usually completely unrelated topics. Gender identity should be taught in schools, and not even taught, but gender identity should be something that is taught to the teachers, not necessarily taught to the children or the students. There just needs to be the place. There needs to be a safe and structured place for a diverse gender expression to safely occur at school. It doesn't need to be taught in the form of a lesson, but there are systems that need to be in place to support the individuals that naturally come to school with a gender diverse expression. In all of my years in working with children, I've seen many different diverse gender expressions come from children, and none of them have been initiated by me, but they have been supported by me in ways that aren't explicit. And what I mean by explicit is not this idea of inappropriateness, but explicit means like me sitting down and saying, hi, I noticed that you're a girl and you're acting really masculine, and I think that's great, and I think you should keep going. No, what I'm doing is maybe potentially stepping in when I hear a kid say, why is Katie so manly? Like, because that's the way that she acts. Like, it's just, it's all in the way that you talk about those kids. It's all in the way that you set the example for these children. It's not a lesson that you sit down and teach them. It's the way that you act around those moments in those like social settings. That's all that it is. It's not explicit. Yeah.
So I don't think the bill goes far enough, but obviously it's a great first step. But no, anybody with a few more brain cells than your average leftist can understand that it's not hateful in any way, you know, and that's what we believe.
I secretly love you. Okay, so tell me this.
It's not that secret. It is not that secret. Ugh.
Where does this radicalized section, this faction of LGBTQ, where does it go too far? Where does the pendulum come back and swing the other way where it's just not so crazy?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of our taglines that I always say is like hashtag reverse the slope. Oh gosh, it all started going real south a long time ago, honestly, you know. Like I said, we have nothing against trans people, but there is a stark difference between LGB and T.
Nope, there is not. There is no LGB without the T. There is no LGB without the T. The queer rights movement was started by trans individuals. The support of the trans community to perpetuate the queer rights movement is so influential that it is impossible to have the LGB without the T, and that is completely discriminatory. It's garbage, and I hate that. I hate that so much, and I don't think that's okay. And Jamie, not that I had any respect for this individual before that. I shouldn't be sweating because I have self-tanner on right now. She's gonna make me all blotchy, but yeah, I think that's a big old problem, and especially when she says, I don't think I'm transphobic, but it's like saying, I'm not racist, but, and everybody leans in because they know you're going to say something racist. Like, it's just, there is no LGB without the T, there is no LGB without the T, there is no LGB without the T.
I've never liked that we're lumped in together because LGB is who you love and the T is who you are. They're fundamental.
Okay, yeah, that's correct, sure.
And fundamentally very different things. So, you know, as soon as...
But what about the trans people who are gay? What about the trans people who are lesbians? What about the trans people who are, what's the other one? Bisexual. They could still...
And it's like the trans people kind of drown out all of the gay people. Mm-hmm.
You're the one who's making them be drowned out because you're focused on them and not everybody else. It's kind of your community who are, yeah.
So honestly, back then, when the trans movement really started rising, and I think that
there is no trans movement without the gay movement. It's because they're together. It's because those communities are so tightly close knit. I've never had a community of only gay people and no trans people. I've never been a part of a community that's filled with LGBs and no Ts. You know what I mean? And if I did, it would be pretty friggin' boring. God, I love trans people. Like I have so many people in my life that I love so much who are trans, and it's the least interesting thing about them. It's just something that anyway. I'm getting off track.
What really started to push things over the edge. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I want to make it clear: we're not hateful of anybody.
No, I get it.
Except for the people that are specifically targeting children.
Yes.
Nobody cares. I think
sure, yeah, I can agree. If you're targeting children, that's not good. But what they believe is targeting children and what I believe is targeting children are very two different things. Because if I look at this from the opposite way, I could be like heteros against groomers in the same way that when you expose children to heteronormativity, I could say that's grooming them into heteronormativity, right? If you're reinforcing the gender binary, if you're saying that girls can only wear pink and not blue, and boys can't paint their nails, and girls have to be like the homemakers and play these traditional feminine roles that uphold capitalism and the patriarchy and colonialism in ways that is hurting these two individuals as well. I don't see how they don't have the self-awareness to realize that they're perpetuating a system that also strips them of equality at the same time, but that's neither here nor there. And I lost my train of thought, so yeah.
Few people left in this country actually care what adults are doing behind closed doors. It's like, but you know, it's also being pushed down everyone's throats, even not just about kids. I mean, Pride Month, you cannot look anywhere for 2 seconds and not see a rainbow. It's like, you know, gay people make up about 7% of the country.
If you're so upset with seeing a rainbow, oof. Oh my God, what is that freeze frame? Jesus, that scared the hell out. What is that? Her thumb? Doesn't matter. I can't stop looking at it. If you are that hurt by a rainbow, like, tell me you don't have a personality. Don't tell me you don't have a personality. Like, what?
And we're, you know, the whole country and the whole world is being blasted with this for 30 days. But, you know, America...
Good, I love Pride Month. It's my favorite time of year.
Only gets one day. So it's a lot. It's been coming for a while, but, you know, I don't think that people really were going to do anything until they started going after kids. I really never thought that would happen, but we're here now and we're going to end it.
Jamie, how do people find you? How do they follow you? How do they join your reasonable, rational, common sense idea?
Yeah, of course. So we're on Twitter at Against Groomers. The gay part wouldn't fit, but we're just Against Groomers on Twitter. On Instagram, we're Gays Against Groomers, and we're on like every social media platform, all the alternative ones. If you just go to gaysagainstgroomers.com, we have all of our links right there. as well as
Don't worry, bestie. We're going to continue this journey. We're going to be clicking on those links in the next videos. Don't you worry.
way to donate because we are completely self-funded.
Right
we
on.
actually aren't funded at all.
Right.
But to support the
And I remember seeing in another video that a lot of their funding has been not cut off, but the ways in which they were funding, so like the platforms like Venmo, etc., they have been shut down because this is discriminatory and it doesn't follow the guidelines of these things. So I can only hope that they're still struggling monetarily for this.
because we have plans to actually take action. We have plans to create and go to events all over the country, and we plan to start chapters in every state and internationally. We've already had like hundreds of people reach out asking if there's a chapter
Let's
in their
go.
area, wanting to start them.
Yes.
So I mean, we've talked to people all over the world already, and it's going to be a global.
Don't worry, there's a lot more leftists who have a lot of these same kinds of ideas that are coming. There's a lot more support for queer people than there are against queer people, and even when it comes from within inside that I keep wanting to make a joke that's not worth it, and then I conflate the two in my head, is that there's so much more support for queer people even than when it's coming from inside the house and things like this. So if you're watching this and you get depressed by these things, like I could feel that and I can understand that, but don't worry, there are a lot of communities and things that support anti-hate rhetoric like this. And you know what, a part of me making these videos too is to provide like a little bit of comedic nonsense and because this isn't taken seriously by most of the queer people in the world. This is only taken seriously by people who inherently have homophobic and transphobic ideals to begin with. This is only taken seriously by people who are not a part of these communities and are not educated and essentially are weaponizing their incompetence. Just baseline, full stop.
And yeah,
You
so
tell
go to
me-
gaysagainstrumers.com and you can find us anywhere.
You tell me how I can help out. You stay in touch with me, won't you, dear?
I will.
I
Yeah,
would-
of course.
I would be happy
I'd love
to.
to come back anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm meeting all of these new people and I kind of hate it, but it's giving me lots of content.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Jamie Michelle, Gays Against Groomers. Common sense. Isn't it refreshing?
That's how it ends. Isn't it refreshing? Refreshing and delicious. Oh my god. Okay. Oh, and now it's Lawrence Chaney. Okay, girls, that's the end of this video here. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Dismantling Hate. Here with me, your host, David Day. If you would like to hang out with me more, I have a podcast. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe to the channel, like, leave a comment, do all the things. Watch another video here of Dismantling Hate here on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. And until next time, goodbye.